Okay, Kaya. If you were going to read this book, could you tell me what it was going to be about without reading the title? If you did not read the title, could you tell me what it was going to be about?
About when he didn't like green eggs in him.
Okay. So, if you open up your book, if I wanted you to skim a passage, have you ever heard of that before? Okay, so skimming is where you follow a process. You're going to learn about the main idea of the story. So up here where it says, you may like them, you will see, you may like them in a tree. If we were going to just skim this to see what it was going to be about, we would just read a few of the words. Such as we would read them, like, maybe tree. Do you understand that? So if I wanted you to tell me what this page was about without reading it, if I just had you skim through there, what do you think it's going to say? If you're just going to skim, can you skim through there and tell me what's going on this page? Yeah, like we're just going to read a few of them. Like you're just going to read, I do not, in a box, and then just go on down the page. And instead of reading the whole page, we're just going to scan through it and see if we can figure out what this page is about without actually having to read the whole thing.
I do not in a box.
Yes.
I do not with a fox.
So what do you think he's talking about? If you were just going to skim through that, what do you think he's talking about?
Like he doesn't want to do it with them.
He doesn't want to do what?
He doesn't want to eat the green eggs and ham with them.
Right. He doesn't want to eat them. So do you think you could understand all of that without reading that? Do you think you would know what he was doing if you just read part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about if you were just going to scan the words on this page, what do you think this page would be about?
Like he still doesn't want to eat them.
He doesn't want to eat them, but he doesn't want to eat them where?
In the dark.
In the dark. So you just read, how did you figure that out? By just reading a few of these words down here? See, so skimming, that's what you do. You look for the main idea. That's what it's called, is the main idea of the story. So that means that you just look at a few of the words, and just by looking at a few of those words, you can usually figure out what the story or what the page or whatever it is you're reading is going to be about. It's a faster way to read. Okay, so what about this page? What do you think's taking place on this page?
He would not want to eat them in the water either.
In the water either. Okay. What about this one? What's he fixing to do?
He's fixing to eat it.
Is he fixing to eat it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how'd you figure that out?
Because I can tell. The reason why I know that he is because he has a fork and it's picking it up.
Okay, so he has a fork in his hand. What about if you just skim through these right here? What's taking place right here? If you don't read all of it, if you just skim that page and read a few of the words, what's taking place?
I like eggs and ham.
So he likes them where?
In a boat
And where else?
with a goat.
With a goat. And see, so you didn't have to read that whole page in order to figure that out, did you? So if you're going to read this whole book, do you think you could read the whole thing and know what it was about if you just scanned the words and skimmed through the words a little bit?
Like I would. Then I would. It'd be like I would like them or I would them.
Okay. But skimming, what I'm trying to teach you here, skimming is where it's the process of rapidly, and you know what rapidly means? Like really, really fast. It's where you're going to read fast, but you're only going to read a few words at a time, and then that way you can figure out what it's going to be about. You understand what that means? We only read just a few pages or a few words at a time, and then just by reading those few words, it'll tell us exactly what it's going to be about. So, like, if you're ever in a hurry and you're trying to read something really quickly, like whenever you guys do your STAR testing, you know, and Miss Hollister's giving you all the STAR test on your computer, you guys only have a little bit of time to answer those questions, right? Because what happens if you don't answer them on time?
Then they'll take you to the next one, and then you won't get. Then you might not pass first grade.
Yeah. Kinda. But yeah, if you don't read them in a certain amount of time, then it'll kick you off of that question, and you don't get to go redo that question. But if we can learn to scan what it says and just to read a few words at a time instead of trying to read the whole thing at one time, then we have more time, and then we might have a better chance at getting it right. So a lot of times you can look at the title of the book, like on here, and a lot of times in other books, they'll have what they call subtitles, like this right here. And you can also read those, and it a lot of times will tell you what is going to be talked about in that. So just by reading a few bits and pieces, sometimes will tell you what the whole book or the story or the paper or whatever it is going to be about, or that way you're not in a time crunch trying to get it all done. Because sometimes it's scary. If you run out of time and
it kicks you out. Your teacher might be mad too.
Yeah, sometimes. And then it stresses you out because you don't have time to answer it. Right? Okay, so how, if you were going to read just a little bit of, let's say, this page, if you were just going to skim through there and tell me what it would be about, what do you think it would, by looking at the pictures and everything else, what do you think it's talking about?
He's trying to get him to like him and eat him.
Okay, and what else? He's trying to get him to eat them and to like them, but what else?
He keeps bugging him about them. And he wants them to eat him in a house with a mouse.
Very good. So you figured that out just by what?
A picture.
And then what else?
And scanning through the words.
Very good. So do you think you understand that now? How come you should learn how to do that? What's another reason that you might want to learn how to do that, skimming a text? What would be another reason you would think? Do you think it would make you a better reader? Yeah. Maybe feel a little bit more confident in your reading? And a lot of times you have hard words that you can't really sound out, right? And you don't know those words. So sometimes if you can just skim over it and maybe skip that word, a lot of times you can tell what that story's going to be about just by reading a few words, right? You don't necessarily have to know that great big word to know what the whole story's going to be about. Is that right? So whenever we go back to school in a few weeks and you're sitting in Miss Mulligan's class and she puts a big story in front of you, what's a way that you think if we run out of time on reading that story, what's one way that we can find more time to read it? By skimming through and just picking out what words look like they're going to be really, really hard, huh? Or not really hard, but words, just a few words in the story, and that way it'll tell us what the whole story's going to be about, huh? Yeah. Okay, so the little girl that I chose to do my strategy with, I chose to do skimming. She just happens to be my neighbor, and she also goes to the school that I work at. Her name is Lakea, and as you can hear in our video, that's what I did. I chose to do skimming and teach her about skimming. If I was to have an ELL student who maybe was still struggling, or any other type of student who may be struggling with reading, even especially those bigger words. Some of these words are really difficult for them, but by teaching them about skimming and just scanning the text and looking for maybe bold print, a lot of books have bold print or bigger print or subtitles or captions or any of those things. By teaching them to just scan through and kind of look for the main idea, you can figure out a lot of the main idea. A lot of times it's in the first sentence or in the first paragraph or in the first few sentences, and from them just looking for those key words a lot of times will make them feel more confident in their reading, and it builds up a lot of their skills to where they're not trying to sound out every single word and struggling or running out of time. Just like I explained with her, if you're sitting there and doing a STAR test or an iStation test or any of those things, a lot of times they're timed. And they're going to stress those kids out if they know that they're timed. But if they can just learn to skim and scan a text, then they're going to be a lot more effective and strong and confident readers throughout their lives. As long as they know exactly how to do that and exactly how to look for the main idea of that story. It will take some time. A lot of them, it will take some time to learn. Just like I'm sure as teachers, it'll take us a while to be able to teach it to them. It's definitely not something that can be done in one day. But if they understand what it is and understand what it is that they're looking for, then I think we can help them, and we can help build strong and confident readers and continue that as long as we are able to effectively explain it to them. Also, it's not something that really needs to take a whole lot of time. As long as we practice at it every day, and if we practice it in and out of the classroom, it can be integrated into our everyday activities, into our everyday reading activities, as long as they continue to practice and they continue to build on those skills. Skimming a text should only take about a minute or two. And if they can do that, and then they won't have to worry about running out of time or struggling on so many words that they struggle with, it will make them feel more confident if they're able to just scan it and then tell you what the main idea was about, or tell you something that they learned from that story. A lot of times, if you read the whole story, a lot of kids, and even myself included growing up, I struggled to remember something that I had read back to back, to front to cover like that. So I actually learned how to skim as a young kid, and that's something that I really encourage my kids, or my students, to learn how to do. So then that way it will also help them to remember it better. They won't have to remember every single detail that took place, but if they scan that text and skim that text and become confident in skimming, then they will be able to remember it and have much better scores and just do better overall.